Hello, I'd like to share some information with you today in regards to guilt trips. This information is coming from verywellmind.com, written by Kendra Sherry, and medically reviewed by David Sussman. So guilt trips involves causing another person to feel guilty or a sense of responsibility to change their behavior or take a specific action. So, because guilt can be a powerful source, motivator for human behavior, people can wield it as a tool to change how others think, feel, and behave. So, if someone has ever made you feel bad about something that you've done or didn't do, and they use those bad feelings to get you to do something for them, then you're having an experience with guilt trips. So what are some signs of guilt trips? Some key signs, not all inclusive, may be making comments suggesting that you have not done as much work as they may have done, reminding you of favors that a person may have performed for you in the past, acting as if a person is angry, but then denying that there's a problem, bringing up mistakes that you have made in the past, refusing to speak to you, or giving you the silent treatment. Also, it can be suggesting that you owe them something, making it clear through body language, tone of voice, facial expressions that they disapprove of what you're doing, engaging in passive-aggressive behavior, and making sarcastic comments or remarks about efforts or progress. It can show up in many relationships, whether those are friendships, family dynamics, romantic relationships, work relationships, parental relationships, and even work relationships. So there are specific types of guilt trips. So some of the different purposes of guilt trip may include manipulation. Sometimes a person's primary goal of the guilt trip is to manipulate an individual into doing something that they normally would not consider doing. Moral education, guilt trips can be a way of getting someone to engage in behavior that the individual feels is more morally right. Conflict avoidance. In some cases, people may use guilt trips to avoid directly talking about an issue. It allows them to get what they want without having to engage in the conflict directly. Also, elicit, sympathy. So what that can kind of look like is guilt tripping, allowing the individual to gain sympathy of others to cast themselves in a role of another action so that they don't feel guilty about it. So guilt is not necessarily a bad thing. While often troubling and unpleasant, it can serve an important role in guiding moral behavior. When an individual experiences guilt, they can fix their mistakes by avoiding and repeating the same errors in the future. So there are some impacts of guilt, right? Whether guilt is wielding intentionally or not, it prevents healthy communication and connections with individuals. It can damage or do damage to a relationship, and these are some of the most immediate effects, forms of covert manipulation. In other words, inducing feelings of guilt may work to get your partner to do something that you may want, but it comes at a cost. It can impact the trust and cause the person to feel that they are being manipulated. Also, guilt can raise up some resentment at times. So what that kind of looks like is if a single occasion of someone using guilt trip to alter a person's behavior may not have a serious impact on your relationship, but repeated use of guilt trips can leave you feeling a bit bitter. There's also, reactance. And what that kind of is in other words, when guilt trips backfire, it can lead people to behave outside of or the opposite of how someone else wants them to act. Also, it can impact in poor well-being. So this type of covert manipulation may also sometimes contribute to the development of a guilt complex, which is persistent belief that you have done or will do something wrong. Over time, guilt can lead to feelings of shame, and shame can affect your self-image. So how to cope with guilt trips, if you will. So there are a couple of ways. Acknowledging the request. Let the person know that you understand that is important to them. Responding with empathy and showing that you see their needs may help the individual feel like they're simply not being ignored. Also set boundaries. Even if you end up helping them with their request, make sure you are clearly articulating your limits and explaining the consequence to crossing those boundaries. Also, there's sharing your feelings. So, explaining that you also see how they're trying to make you feel guilty, so that you'll do what they want. You can express how that type of manipulation makes you feel and suggesting interacting in a way that leads to resentment and more direct communication forms could be more effective. So, protecting your own well-being definitely should be a top priority. A person who tries to manipulate you with toxic feelings of shame and guilt may not have your best interest at heart. So in terms of getting help or support in this area, if you're experiencing guilt or related symptoms to stress, anxiety, depression, talk to a healthcare provider or a mental health provider, please, please, please. They, ourselves, we can recommend treatment options, such as, psychotherapy, and or if it is a mental health professional, refer to a healthcare professional for medication management that can assist in managing those symptoms and improve your quality of life. Your doctor, therapist, we may suggest other forms and types of therapy. We can also help you learn to recognize the symptoms of guilt tripping and assist you in practicing strategies to cope with the emotional manipulation. So I hope this information was of assistance for you today, and I hope you enjoy the remainder of your day.